The first time David kissed me, it was among the bones of dinosaurs, ancient, towering skeletons that watched us like silent judges. His lips tasted of sweet wine and regret, his hands trembling against my waist as if he already knew this would ruin us. "Patricia," he whispered, my name a confession. I should have pushed him away. Instead, I pulled him deeper into the shadows of the museum's fossil hall, our 60-year-old hearts pounding like reckless teenagers. It was the beginning of everything, and the end. Welcome, dear viewers. Before we dive into this tangled tale of love and lies, I want to pause and thank each of you, new and returning, for being here. If you haven't yet subscribed, I hope you will hit that button. Your support fuels this channel, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's begin. My name is Patricia Whitlock. For 30 years, I've been the director of the Carlisle Museum of Natural History in upstate New York. My life was orderly. Morning walks with my corgi, Winston, fundraising galas with my husband, Gerald, and quiet evenings grading grant proposals. Until he arrived. David Mercer, silver-haired, sharp-tongued, and newly hired as our senior curator. We had known each other peripherally for decades. Museum circles are small, but when he walked into my office that first day, his gaze lingered a beat too long. Still ruling this kingdom with an iron fist. "I see," he had said, smirking at the clutter on my desk. "Someone has to keep the fossils in line," I replied, ignoring the heat in my cheeks. The attraction was instant, electric, and entirely inconvenient. Gerald, my husband of 35 years, had long since retreated into his golf clubs and scotch, our marriage reduced to polite exchanges over lukewarm coffee. But David? David saw me. At staff meetings, his eyes tracked my every gesture. During late-night paperwork sessions, he would bring me chamomile tea, his fingers brushing mine. "You work too hard, Patricia," he would murmur. The night of the annual gala, everything cracked open. The museum was glittering, chandeliers casting prisms over champagne flutes, donors laughing too loudly beneath the blue whale skeleton. David found me on the third-floor balcony, my silk dress clinging to me in the summer humidity. "You look incandescent," he said, voice rough. "Stop," I warned, but he stepped closer. "Why not? Gerald hasn't looked at you like this in years." The truth of it stung. "This isn't appropriate." "Since when do we care about appropriate?" His hand grazed my bare arm. "We're not dead yet, Patricia." And then he kissed me. A stolen, searing moment that tasted like rebellion. When we finally pulled apart, he pressed a small brass key into my palm. "Storage Vault B12, he said. "Tomorrow night. There's something you need to see." The vault was dim, smelling of aged paper and dust. David stood beside a stack of archival boxes, his face lit by a single lamp. "These just arrived from the Mercer family estate," he said, voice low. "Letters. Diaries. From the 1920s. I frowned. "Why show me?" He lifted a brittle letter from its sleeve. "Because they're not just my family's secrets." The handwriting looped elegantly across the page. "Dearest Eleanor, I fear Arthur suspects. If he discovers the child is not his." My breath caught. Eleanor Whitlock. That's my great-grandmother. David's smile was grim. And Arthur Mercer was my great-grandfather. Seems our families have a history of indiscretions. The room tilted. "You're saying Eleanor and Arthur had an affair?" "Yes." "And the baby your grandfather was Arthur's." I sank onto a wooden crate. "So we're not blood-related, thank God." His laugh was hollow. "But it explains why I've been drawn to you since the day we met. History repeats itself." He reached for me then, and I didn't resist. The letters fluttered to the floor as he pushed me onto the cold metal desk, his mouth desperate on mine. It was reckless. It was wrong. And it was only the beginning. The storage vault became our sanctuary. For weeks, David and I met there every Thursday under the guise of archival research, our hands trembling as we unlocked boxes of letters only to abandon them on the floor. The more we learned about Eleanor and Arthur's affair, the coded telegrams, the lock of hair tucked into a diary, the more we mirrored their recklessness. One afternoon, David pinned me against the vault's cold wall, his breath hot on my neck. "We're cursed, aren't we?" he muttered, half laughing. "Doomed to repeat the same mistakes." I didn't answer. I didn't care. Gerald noticed first. "You're home late again," he said one evening, swirling a scotch without looking up. The ice cubes clinked like accusations. Grant deadlines, I had to lie, toeing off my heels. Winston trotted over, sniffing my skirt, David's cologne, before whining and retreating. Gerald's eyes narrowed. Funny. I called the office. No one answered. I was in the vault. No cell service.
Right.
He stood, towering over me in a way he hadn't in years. And the charges at the Willow Inn? That's where you research now. My stomach dropped. We had gotten careless. 2 weeks prior, David had booked a room under his name, claiming the vault was too clinical. I had paid cash for the wine, but the front desk clerk, a college student interning at the museum, had recognized me. "It's not what you think," I said, the words ash in my mouth. Gerald laughed, brittle and cold. "Save it, Patricia."
I am not blind. Just
tired. He left the room, and I heard the garage door groan open minutes later. He didn't return until dawn. The next morning, my daughter Emily called. "Mom," she said, her voice strained. "We need to talk." We met at a cafe near her Brooklyn apartment. Emily, 34 and fiercely independent, had Gerald's stubborn chin but my restless eyes. She clutched a manila envelope, her engagement ring catching the light. "I am pregnant," she blurted. "Oh, sweetheart." I reached for her hand, but she pulled back. "That's not all." She slid the envelope across the table. Inside were DNA results, a letter from a genetic counselor, and a faded photo of David at 25, smirking, holding a baby. "What is this?" I whispered. "I did one of those ancestry kits for the baby's medical history." Her voice cracked. "Turns out Dad isn't my biological father. He is." She pointed at David's photo. The room spun. "Emily, did you know?" Her eyes blazed. "All these years, did you know?" The truth lodged in my throat. David and I had crossed paths decades ago. A conference in Chicago, a blur of whiskey and rain-streaked windows. I had buried it, told myself it meant nothing. But when Gerald and I struggled to conceive, and David reappeared as a sperm donor for a friend, I had seized the chance. Gerald never questioned it. "I wanted to tell you," I said weakly. "Bullshit." She stood, knocking over her chair. "You lied to Dad. You lied to me. And now I have to tell my fiancé that our baby's grandfather is some stranger." She stormed out, leaving the envelope behind. I stared at the photo. David's younger self, oblivious to the grenade he had left in my lap. That night, I confronted David in the vault. "You knew," I hissed, shoving the DNA report at him. "You knew Emily was yours." He palmed his face, exhaling sharply. "I suspected. When she started interning here last year, I saw the birth date on her paperwork. Did the math. And you didn't think to mention it? Not even when you kissed me? What would you have done, Patricia?" He stepped closer, eyes glinting. "Ended this? Confessed to Gerald? Admit you've been lying for 34 years? I slapped him. The crack echoed off the metal shelves. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me into a bruising kiss. "We're in this together," he growled. "Whether you like it or not." Gerald moved out the following week. "I will stay at the club," he said, tossing suits into a suitcase. "My lawyer will be in touch." "Please," I begged, tears choking me. "Let's fix this." He paused at the door, shoulders slumped. You didn't just cheat on me, Patricia. You rewrote our entire life. Our daughter's life. When he left, I crawled into Emily's childhood bed, clutching her old teddy bear. The voicemails began at midnight. David, pleading, then furious, then silent. By dawn, I had decided I would end it. But the universe had other plans. The museum's centennial gala was meant to celebrate a century of discovery. Instead, it became a funeral for my lies. I stood beneath the reconstructed skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus rex, its jaws frozen in a perpetual snarl, as donors in tuxedos and sequined gowns clinked champagne flutes around me. David lingered near the fossil hall in trance, his eyes darting between me and the crowd. He had grown gaunt these past weeks, his crisp suits hanging looser, but his gaze still burned with defiance. We're in this together, his stare insisted. Emily arrived uninvited. I spotted her the moment she stepped into the atrium, her pregnant belly taut under a black maternity dress, her fiancé, Mark, trailing nervously behind. Her eyes locked onto mine, and the room seemed to hollow out. Mom, she said, loud enough for nearby guests to pivot. Care to introduce me to David Mercer? David froze mid-sip of champagne. Emily, I whispered, stepping toward her. Not here. Let's talk privately.
Why?
She laughed, sharp as shattered glass. Afraid your donors will find out their beloved director's a liar? Mark gripped her elbow. Maybe we should. She shook him off.
No.
Everyone should know. She turned to the growing audience, her voice rising. My mother's been sleeping with this man for months. Oh, and he's also my biological father. Fun twist, right? Gasps rippled through the crowd. A server dropped a tray of canapes. David set down his glass. Emily, this isn't the place. Do not. She wheeled on him. You don't get to say my name. I reached for her, but she recoiled. You had 34 years to tell me, she hissed. Instead, you let me call that sad, clueless man Dad. Gerald's absence throbbed like a fresh wound. He had replied his RSVP with a no to the gala, opting instead to finalize divorce papers. A hand clasped my shoulder. Martin Reeves, the museum board's chairman, leaned in, his breath reeking of cigars. Patricia. My office now. The boardroom was cold, its mahogany table littered with financial reports. Martin tossed a folder in front of me. Care to explain the discrepancies in the archival budget? Or the $50,000 transfer to a private lab in Zurich? I flipped through the documents. Invoices for carbon dating, checks signed in my name. These are forged. I never authorized. We traced the account. Martin interrupted. It's linked to David Mercer. The walls closed in. Zurich, where David had researched last spring, where he had texted me photos of snow-capped Alps and empty hotel beds. He's framing me, I said weakly. Martin's smile was pitiless. The board wants your resignation by morning. Unless, he paused, you can prove Mercer acted alone. I found David in the fossil hall, bathed in the blue glow of the prehistoric ocean exhibit. You stole from the museum, I said. He didn't turn. We needed that money. The legal fees, Emily's trust fund. We? My voice echoed off the ancient bones. You used me. You used us. Finally, he faced me. You think this was all some master plan? I fell for you, Patricia. But when Emily's results came in, I panicked. I needed leverage to protect us. By ruining me? By saving us. He gripped my arms.
Resign.
Let me take the fall. We will disappear, start over somewhere. For a heartbeat, I almost believed him. Then I noticed the duffel bag at his feet, stuffed with passports and cash. You were going to run. Without me. His silence confirmed it. I yanked free, pulling the brass vault key from my clutch. You forgot something. His eyes widened. Patricia, don't do that. Storage Vault B. 12 smelled of betrayal. I flung open the Mercer family boxes, scattering letters until I found it, a 1923 diary entry from Arthur Mercer. Eleanor threatens to expose me unless I fund her husband's failing railroad. A mercenary woman. I admire it. My blood turned to ice. Eleanor hadn't loved Arthur. She had blackmailed him, just as David had used me to embezzle. Footsteps echoed behind me. "You shouldn't be here," David said, blocking the exit. I clutched the diary. History's repeating itself. But I am not Eleanor. He stepped closer.
No.
"You're better than her. Smarter." "Stop." I backed toward the desk. "We can still fix this." He reached for me, his touch tender. "I love you." The lie broke me. I swung the diary at his temple. He staggered, crashing into a shelf. Boxes rained down, burying him under a century of secrets. Sirens wailed in the distance. I sat on the vault floor, Eleanor's diary open in my lap, its pages whispering of greed and survival. David groaned under the debris. "Patricia, help." I stood, straightening my gown. "Goodbye, David." The vault door clanged shut behind me, its lock clicking forever. The police found David conscious, but pinned beneath a collapsed shelf, his face streaked with blood and dust. "She attacked me," he slurred, pointing at me as officers pried open the vault. I stood frozen, clutching Eleanor's diary like a talisman, its pages bristling with proof of his crimes. "Self-defense," I said, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. He threatened me. "The embezzlement records are in his office." Detective Ruiz, a no-nonsense woman with a steel-gray bob, flipped through the diary. "This says your great-grandma blackmailed his great-grandpa. You two got a thing for family drama?" By dawn, the headlines blared. "Museum director in love triangle scandal. Curator arrested for theft." My resignation letter sat on Martin's desk and signed. "Resignation won't save you now," he had hissed. "The board wants blood." Gerald called as I packed my office. "Emily's in labor," he said, tone clipped. "Albany General. She won't speak to me either, but you should be there." The hospital corridors felt like a maze. When I reached Emily's room, Mark blocked the door. "She doesn't want you here." "Please," I begged. "Just let me." A guttural scream cut through the hall. Emily's voice. "Get out." The nurse shot me a pitying glance. High-risk delivery. Stress-induced preeclampsia. I sank into a plastic chair, Eleanor's diary still in my purse. Guilt gnawed at me like rot. The investigation exploded that afternoon. Detective Ruiz summoned me to the station, slapping a 1992 financial audit on the table. "Your husband authorized several unlogged donations to the museum, including a $100,000 check from Arthur Mercer's estate, right before your daughter was born." My throat tightened. Gerald knew. He had known about David's sperm donation, the quiet deal struck to save our marriage. To save me. He was protecting the museum, I lied. Or covering for you. Ruiz leaned in. "Funny thing, Mercer's lawyer just shared emails. Turns out Gerald approved every cent David stole. Even redirected funds to an offshore account." The room tilted. "Gerald. Offshore accounts. The golf trips, the sudden absences." "He's testifying against you," Ruiz said. "Claims you masterminded the theft to frame David." I raced to Gerald's brownstone, fury blurring my vision. He answered in a robe, scotch in hand. "You bastard," I spat. "You set me up." He slammed his glass down. "You think I would let you destroy this family? I've kept your secrets for decades, Patricia. The affair, the lies about Emily. But this?" His laugh was bitter. "You're on your own. You knew about the money. You helped David. I protected the museum. And myself." His eyes turned glacial. "Sign the divorce papers, or I will bury you." Emily delivered a girl at 3:17 a.m., 4 pounds, 6 ounces. They're taking her to the NICU, Mark said, hollow-eyed, when I begged for updates. Emily's hemorrhaging. They can't stop the bleeding. I crumpled outside the ICU, the diary's edges digging into my palms. History repeats itself. Eleanor had survived her scandals. Arthur had thrived. But in the shadows of their choices, someone always bled. David called from jail that night. "Patricia," he rasped, "I will recant my statement. Tell them it was Gerald. Just don't let me rot here." I stared at the muted news footage of the museum. Our museum, sealed with police tape. "Why should I?" "Because I loved you," he said softly. "And you loved me. Enough to burn it all down." The line went dead. At sunrise, I drove to Albany General with a stuffed elephant for the baby I would never hold and a letter for Emily. "I am sorry" wasn't enough, but it was all I had left. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale regret. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands cuffed, Gerald's testimony still ringing in my ears. She manipulated us all. The jury avoided my gaze, their faces tight with judgment. But when the prosecutor played a recorded call between Gerald and David, a negotiation to split the embezzled funds, the room erupted. "You set me up too, you son of a bitch." David barked from the witness stand, lunging at Gerald. Marshals restrained him, but the damage was done. Gerald's cool facade cracked, his emails and offshore transfers flooding the screens. The scandal wasn't just mine, it was ours. The verdict came swiftly. Gerald, guilty of conspiracy. David, guilty of grand theft.
Me?
A reluctant accomplice, sentenced to 18 months. Justice, it seemed, was as messy as love. Emily visited me a week before my surrender date, her daughter, Helena, swaddled in a pink blanket. The prison visitation room hummed with murmured apologies and stifled sobs. "She's healthy," Emily said, her voice softer than I deserved. "They're letting her come home." I ached to touch Helena's tiny hand, but the glass between us felt like a lifetime. "I am sorry, Emily, for everything." She hesitated, then pressed a photo to the glass. A newborn Helena, her eyes squinted shut, a tuft of my silver hair on her head. "She looks like you." The tears came then, hot and unyielding. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know." Emily's reflection blurred in the plexiglass. "But you did."
And I
need time." The museum closed its doors the day I entered prison. Auctioneers carted off fossils and art, but workers missed one box, buried in Vault B12. Inside, a 1921 letter from Eleanor to Arthur. "Arthur, the child is yours, but Gerald Whitlock will raise her as his own. You will fund his railroad, and I will keep your name clean. This is the price of legacy." Eleanor hadn't been blackmailed. She had been the architect. The Mercer and Whitlock fortunes were built on a lie, one David and I had unknowingly resurrected. The press devoured the story, but I clung to the final line of Eleanor's letter. "Someday, they'll understand we did it for them." I served 12 months before early release. Emily met me at the gates, Helena balanced on her hip. The baby reached for me, her fingers brushing my cheek. "We're renting a place upstate," Emily said. "Fresh start. You can visit if you want." The autumn air smelled of maple and redemption. I had liked that. The museum became a condo complex, but the vault was preserved as a historical oddity. On opening day, I stood outside, watching strangers tour the ruins of my life. A little girl with Helena's eyes darted past me, laughing. "Mama, look. Dinosaur bones." I turned away, smiling through the ache. History repeats itself, but not always cruelly. To my beloved viewers and listeners, this story of love, lies, and legacy is woven from the fragile threads of human choices. Patricia's journey is a mirror to our own vulnerabilities. If this tale gripped you, please let me know in the comments. What would you have done in her shoes? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more twisted, heartfelt sagas. Your support fuels these stories, and I am endlessly grateful for each of you. Until next time, thank you for joining Patricia's journey. The echoes of our choices linger. What will yours be?